Howdys and salutations, y'all! Back again with some Miquella art. Let's see where we left off last time. I had a little time to prep this time, but not a whole lot. So we'll just keep on with sort of this loosey-goosey initial prep stage. And we can adapt from there either on Thursday or next week, depending on a myriad of factors. I suppose I should give a heads up. Thursday, I might be on time, or I might be a little late. Got a doctor's appointment that's like mid-afternoon, so as long as everything goes to normal schedule, it shouldn't even be close. But, well, y'all know how doctor's appointments go. Or if you don't, the moment you go to a doctor's appointment, you'll learn. They're, a little inconsistent sometimes. That's okay, though. Certainly happy to have the option. Oh, quite a lot of doctors in my life. In any case, I thought the next thing we could do while we're sort of doing loosey-goosey is obviously we can try to build on some of the composition, we can try to build on poses a little bit, but what I'd really like to do next is let's study how Miquella actually stinking looks. We've got, like, almost no reference images, and in fact what I ought to have done during that prep time is crack open Steam wherever it's landed. Steam? Oh dear, it's gonna open like 4 times or something. Okay, cool. Yeah, just dox my stinking username. That's cool. Anyway, okay. Let's disregard that for the time being. I had to just get a separate SifStream Steam account so I don't dox myself. But on the flip side, well, that means I have to buy all the games again. And that costs money that I do not have. So, instead of doing that, we're making do for the time being because it's not like I play games that much anyway. Where'd it go? There we go. That's not it, actually. There we go. I don't know what it is. So I have nervous tics, as one does, and one of them is I just do like a little loop with the mouse or whatever for a second. Like it's a computer nervous tic. What I don't understand is why Microsoft seems to have a command of some sort where if you do some motion like that, it minimizes everything on the screen. I don't know what the command is, what it's called, how to find it to turn it off. It happens. It drives me stinking crazy. Like, who even makes that move on purpose? Like, it's not a bad command move, because no one would do it by accident, but like, except for me, apparently. Ugh. Okay, anyway, what I was doing, before I was so rudely interrupted by myself, was cracking open the screenshots and trying to pull out. I'm gonna go for a couple of specific ones, rather than getting completely lost in Screenshot Valley. Got some more than looking cool, but I'm looking for statues, specifically for Miquella, who looks roughly the same in both statues, and I'm at a worse angle on that one. So let's. There we go, Miquella face, Miquella outfit and hair and crown. Yeah, let's crack these open on disk. Oh no, it's gonna take me way back. I don't know why I think it's gonna remember where the heck I was. Let's not show final boss spoilers if I can help it. Nope, I cannot. Just ignore the thumbnails. Where would be? Yeah. Cool. Numero uno. I'm gonna see if I can copy these onto my desktop real quick. Got our good face reference there. And our outfit reference. And, I mean, the other thing that we could include, if we wanted to, besides this intro cinematic moment, is if we want to assume that the character in the new Elden Ring DLC stuff. I mean, this doesn't spoil stinking anything. What is this? I mean, it's true Elden Ring fashion, to be fair. I guess it spoils some stuff depending on what you do, but not really. And these things are from stinking Dark Souls 3, as are these. But who knows? But if we want to assume this is Miquella, and there's no denying that the outfit and hair match, even if the size doesn't entirely, we could use this as an admittedly not terribly helpful reference other than the back of the braids. And in fact, it's so small I can't make out if they're even wearing the crown or not, so this may well not be Miquella, or at least not current Miquella. Maybe they are wearing the crown. Who knows? Anyway, I'm probably not going to use that one as a reference. We've got this one, which is more in line with the statue, if I'm honest. And, you know, that other one may well be Miquella. Even dare say it's probably likely. But I don't want to use it as a reference just in case it's not, and we get more news at some unknown point in the future. I guess worth note, Miquella, no crown here either. I hadn't noticed that detail before. It does appear to have a cocoon-like ooze. But there's other lore reasons for that. Though it does raise the question if Mohg went back a second time to go get the cocoon, if Mohg's got the cocoon in his other hand, or if Mohg went and made a new cocoon, because where we find Miquella, or maybe Miquella just generates one, who knows? But where we find Miquella, there's a cocoon. And also what looks vaguely like the Orphan of Kos inside, but I think that's unrelated. It just looks vaguely dead. Sort of how these games go. In any case, I figure we ought to do some Miquella studies. I'm probably going to mainly base it on this illustration we have here for now. May try to do just a quick sketch of it. Just so that we sort of get a feel for proportions and size and details that you only notice when you're actually trying to draw something. Or at least that I only notice when I'm trying to draw something. It helps hone in on stuff you'd otherwise disregard. However, let's do this on some new layers. But yeah, I'm trying to think. For some reason, my brain is telling me that there's something I'm forgetting. But I don't think there is. And if there is, then I'm just going to have to hope future me remembers it. Because current me super doesn't. This was our pencil gray, wasn't it? No, our pencil gray was E8, 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 I believe. Or 6-8, 6-8 or something. Yeah, it wasn't that one. Yeah, it was that one. Pencil gray, woo! Anyway, new layer for this. Not two new layers, just the one. Yeah, we're gonna have just a little chaos at the start of this one. And again, I'm sorry that this one is so much more haphazard than Malenia was. Partly I was nervous about Malenia and did a lot of extra prep. And partly because this month got kicked off by me being sick and then busy. Although I can't fully blame busyness for today. I did have a little prep time today. Most of it was spent dealing with chores and such, trying to get routines sorted out and back on track so I actually get enough sleep, because this weekend was crazy. Mostly good things, but still lacking in sleep. However, the one thing that is inexcusable that I lost about an hour or two that would have probably better been spent on stream prep is, y'all are familiar with TV tropes? Dangerous website, that one. I mean, mostly harmless, other than just eating all of your time. I do like me some TV tropes, though. But what I specifically found was apparently they did a live blog, or several people did a live blog of what is, to my knowledge, the worst RPG ever made. And not in a fun way. Not in a fun way. In a combination of horribly thought out mechanics and horribly terrible, like, world and character goals. It's called Fatal. I don't even think that you should look it up, honestly. Like, maybe look up a thing making jokes of it, but even then they're all going to be overly crass. The game is inexcusable in every regard, both in terms of grammar and quality, in terms of failure of follow-through, in terms of the creators having public internet meltdowns, in terms of mechanics designed with a level of pretension, and it is pretension. It may have started out with good intention, but it is just pretension the way they talk about it. Because they talk about, oh, you'll hear people say the math is too complicated. It's not. It only gets into trigonometry, which, look, yeah, trigonometry is math that you can do. It's not. It's high school math. You're not a genius for being like, oh, I find trigonometry so easy. You're also not an idiot for not understanding trig. People have different math aptitudes and different amount of time spent studying it. But the bigger issue is that regardless of how easy you find trig, it does not have a place in stinking game mechanics for a paper and pencil RPG. If you got a computer doing the math behind the scenes, then yeah, you'll be able to keep this up at a speed that makes sense. And bell curves are all fun in games, but trying to actually calculate stuff that lands on one live during the game is a mistake. And as someone who has had flying characters and attempted to even just do Pythagorean calculations in real time for it, even if you're pretty quick at those, it's still a lot less fun than just being able to say, yeah, sure, you're close enough to shoot them. Like, it's a waste of everyone's time and energy to include this stuff in a game. More importantly, they screwed up a lot of it, so they didn't even do it right. So, way to be pretentious or intentional about your math mechanics and still get it wrong. And of course, ethically and morally, it's one of the scummiest things ever created. I don't think there's words I can use on Twitch to describe it, because the actions it encourages are so vile that they're all banned. And I don't mean overly cautious parent banned, I mean like stinking... In the Middle Ages that they claim to be realistically representing, you'd get executed for it. It's so bad. And also, like, phenomenally racist. But, I've heard arguments that they added the racism as an attempt to distract from the other problems, which I don't even know where to start with that. But it probably shows the scale of what's wrong with stinking Fatal. It's a terrible game. It's badly made, badly executed, poorly intended, and unethical. However, it is very funny to read people attempting to make heads or tails of it, because it's just garbage. You can't even read the stats on Twitch. Like, I could not tell you all of the things it has stats for on Twitch. It's bad. It's really bad. So, yeah, no Fatal. Don't even. It's in the category where I think opening the book is going to be an experience not like a fun B-movie, but more like the Star Wars Holiday Special. Except also racist. I mean, like stinking Lovecraft racist. I don't have words. Both, by the way, I should clarify, both in terms of real-life racism, and also they added fantasy racism, just in case you wanted that, complete with slurs to use that each race uses against the others. Just inconceivably just disgusting. Entertaining until you think that someone actually took the time to A, write it, and B, defend it. Horrible. But being on the TV tropes for it and reading people making fun of it, it's now like stuck in the back of my head and distracting me. So I'm going to try to not let that be it's not going to define any stinking thing we draw here. Other than as a slight note to everyone simping over Miquella on the horse, don't forget who you are and how much the Elden Ring subreddit has trashed Moog for the same thing. Don't. It's the same. For context, Miquella is also classic anime trope. 1,000-year-old person or whatever stuck in the body of like a 15-year-old. And then promptly kidnapped. Well, not promptly kidnapped. Very inefficiently kidnapped. Potentially manipulated that, but that doesn't really change the circumstances. Anyway, I don't want to associate Miquella with Fatal. I'm still hoping Miquella is at least like a decent person. Because Malenia seems like a decent but desperate person. And probably, had things gone differently, would have been a fine ruler. Radon would have also been a fine ruler. They would have both been chill. Ronnie wouldn't. Like, look, Ronnie's plan, for better or for worse, is at least an attempt to break the cycle, although it may leave people more vulnerable without fixing it. It's a shot in the dark. More importantly, to execute said plan, she executed a lot of people. And caused a lot of this stinking mess that we're cleaning up in the first place, so Ronnie, just saying, a problematic fave if she's your fave. I won't deny I got Ronnie's ending. It's not one of the worst ones, most likely. It's also not the one I was gunning for. I wanted Stinking Gold Mask, because he's the best one. Well, I don't know about best ending. He's just best dude. Nobody hates Gold Mask. Gold Mask faction consists of him and Turtle Pope, and maybe at some point Miquella, depending on who you ask based on lore descriptions. That's at least a guaranteed 2 out of 3 cool people, and maybe 3 out of 3 cool people. Just making patterns at this point. Hair weaves are not too hard to draw, are they? They're probably relevant for this, although the triple weave that we've got going on in here is going to be harder for me to get my head around. If I'm being honest. Especially because it's really loose at first and then tightens up later. Anyway, we'll get to that. Should have used a bigger eraser. Just deleted the layer. Nope, that's dirt on my screen. That's not a line. I should clean my screen. Okay, yeah, anywho. Let's actually try to do Miquella illustration, yes? Yes. Got the nice new pencil, which hopefully will still be good. I know we made a new pen besides the Fun Windows XP screensaver. Is the ballpoint any good? Oh, it's got a good edge. I'll grant it that. Still, it really needs a darker ink and a smaller point, probably. And maybe a little point texture. We'll see. But I'm sticking with the tilt pencil for now, as I call it. Well, it's not the best. It's not a bad facsimile. Trying to get used to different art space. My eyes keep wandering over here, expecting for drawing area. But I want to keep a big reference for the moment. Let's think about overall proportions. I mean, this is torso length. Let's try to get the angle right. The up, roughly similar angle, but the point is, how are they in comparative lengths? They're very similar. Okay. Then legs, below knees. Unclear how far they go. They may just be tilted away from us. I mean, Moog's got his hand there. Thinking about arm position here. Elbow comes at about 3/4 of the way down, and the rest of the arm roughly there. I need a more natural. Mostly straight down, and this really is just straight down. Add a little more tilt to that one, and then straighten. Nope, sorry, wrong button. A little straighten it. That'll probably do. I just worry it's... Well, okay, no, because if we think about the back's going to be like that, so that should line up right. For the record, I do want to get this back line here, and I want to make sure that proportionally its distance, which I might... My head is naturally going to try to inflate the distance here. I need to make sure I don't. If we have a curve to swing it down, it comes about halfway. That's reasonable for this. I mean, I can always literally manually test it, but I don't know that that's necessary. Better to get some eyeballing practice anyway. So there's that. Head seems to come out about here. Down till hair up and over. Okay, we've got ourselves a nice little outline, and again, I'm considering this a quick study, so I'm just doing it on one layer. We'll regret that later, I promise you. That's okay. Swap to a slightly finer point pencil, or perhaps just to be a little more aggressive with the metaphor, sharpen said pencil. Let's see, Miquella gender still not defined. Yeah, okay. They're a kid. Don't matter that much. Certainly doesn't matter in terms of art proportions. Doing a bad job of building this out with low detail. I'm sure there's part of my brain that says add the folds. I need to not listen to that part of my brain. All of you who've been here on here before know I'm gonna end up listening to that part of my brain anyway. I apologize in advance. One curve, pretty straight. This one. That was the hand that's on here. Guess we're just doing hand details already. Good job. Didn't even take me a full minute. Clear out some of these inner alignment lines. A little more going on in here. Overall, a nice elbow. Let's kind of sag a little more. Fine. We'll deal with that in a little more detail in a minute. The odds are this really comes down more like this. It's more like that, just for the record. Helps us get that smoother edge on the bottom. That's all we end up seeing of this, of course, because silhouette. Let's try to get overall leg shape before we start getting nooks and crannies, eh? Leg is feeling a little long, truthfully. But it could just be that the character is more slouched than our depiction is really letting on. And we'll just kind of do a wider out from there. Most of that's going to be obscured by hair, but I still want to get the proportions halfway decent. More importantly, I'm going to do this one on a different layer. This pose does have some context that we can't really ignore because the rest of the pose will make no sense otherwise. So let's get Moog in here. Using this as sort of a reference point. How far does it go compared to the hand? Similar distance. We got thumbnail coming all the way up. We'll just do, again, facsimile in here. I do! As creepy as it is, I like the level of detail they went to in this illustration on Moog. Like, it's one of the better Moog references we have, and he's in the actual game. And Moog himself, I mean, look, he's not great. And he definitely kidnapped a childish person. But if the theory that Miquella lured Moog into doing that is true, which is, again, still a stretch, but possible, then honestly, Moog, other than the sacrificing people to blood deity, pretty chill. I mean, he's not chill, but he doesn't seem like the worst guy. I feel kind of bad for him, you know? He's more pitiable than some of the other enemies who you really would, like, especially some of the ones you'd expect to be more pitiable than him. He still does terrible things, though, and at some point that's not excusable. So no, I'm not attempting to excuse Moog. I'm not a Moog apologist. That's not what apologist means, although in this context it could be what apologist means if we mean that I'm trying to make rational arguments about Moog. I'm not. I don't think he's great. I just think that the fan base hates him for the wrong reasons. There's correct reasons to dislike him. It's not because he's just a creepy looking dude. Oh dang, is that actually part of his face visible? I don't know his face well enough to be able to judge. Possibly. Possibly beard. Or possibly just collar. Anyway, yeah, I feel bad for the omens. Not when they stab me. It's hard to feel bad for them when they're actively stabbing me, but generally speaking, they deserved better. And I feel especially bad for Morgott, even though stinking killer boss fight, dude. Even with NPC buddies, because I mean I had to summon the NPC. Look, I'll be honest. I am more than willing to sacrifice cool boss fight for the sake of story-rich NPC experience. Dark Souls 1, I brought Solaire to Gwyn, even though, like, yeah, that probably cheapened the fight. I don't remember Gwyn being particularly hard, but you better believe having Solaire there was worth it. And I feel the same way about the NPC you bring to Morgott. And also, at a later duel in the same location, there's another NPC summon that, even though it did make the fight easier, maybe, although honestly that guy's moves are easier to read when it's one-on-one, but having that NPC summon there just was the right thing to do, lore-wise. And I was like, yes, I will be doing this. So yeah. I did an NPC summon for Moog. I did Mimic Tier. I was probably slightly overleveled for the area, but he was still a tough challenge. Definitely a HP check. Especially his famous catchphrase of nothing. That is definitely an HP check. Even if you're healing through it. Pardon my yawns. Oh, that's part of it. It's shadow. That's why the leg looks too long. Actually too thin. Interesting. Anyway, getting into a smaller. Getting off of the Moog hand layer. Soup. Let's go back to Miquella studies. Try to get something a little more refined now with some of these creases. And this appears to just be like a tunic-y material. There's not a ton of detail on here. Which would make sense if they're going for kind of like a, oh, purity, you know, Greek-looking standards of purity. Whatever. It makes sense for this. But it's also interesting, given how grandiose a lot of other people's outfits are. Although even his sisters, for all the complexity of the metalwork, the actual outfit that isn't prosthesis is also fairly tame. Trying to do separate shapes without paying attention to proportions when you're doing little folds and stuff like this is always a mistake. And it's one I always stinking make. Why do I do this? This is already too small. This one at the very least needs to be coming out like this and reaching all the way down. We'll need to get a lot more shadow going on in here. Oh, hold on. Is this frill or is it Moog frill? Hard to say. Could be frill though. Not sold that it is. But I'm gonna go on that assumption because it's kind of an interesting one. And if it is frill, we'll want to have that as a note. Alright, let's see. Kind of goes up here. There's just a lot of shadow in this lower section. Some from the wrinkles, some from other things. Okay, really though, we can get real light shading down in here. Part of the shadow issue is that all of that needed to be in some amount of shadow. Okay. Like there's just kind of like one of those like counter angle shadows going on over here. Fine. Again, we're just trying to get a rough, and this doesn't have necessarily details that I'm too worried about. I'm okay just getting some rough shading in here to find where stuff ought to be. Most of the details here is just the fold of the fabric, which isn't anything particularly crazy. Got good drape though. If I didn't know better, I'd say it looks like a nice polyester, but it's definitely not. And only say that because of stuff I've been trying to do for some cosplay outfits. Cosplay that I'm being way too indecisive on, and I'm not going to have enough time to actually finish it. We've been zoomed in for a long time. I'm only going to do a little bit longer before we do a zoom out. I do want to... Ooh, whoops. Hold your horses. An arm bracelet, or is it like a strap part of the tunic? I'm going to go with bracelet until proven otherwise. Actually lighter in color as well. Oh, interesting that Miquella is looking pretty sallow even in this state. Realize shading the arm at a different angle than the rest of the body is probably not going to do any favors in terms of visual consistency or coherence on this. That's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. For no particular reason. It's just like, may as well. Not gonna make that huge of a difference in the long run. There we go, we can lean in a little more on that. Okay, that's Moog's sleeve details, not too worried about that. Okay, let's zoom out a bit before we jump onto the head and hair. I mean, at a glance, that looks not terrible. You know, obviously, it doesn't look great because we're doing this as a way to study it, not actually getting detail. We can always add detail, especially like Moog's hand if we really wanted. Oh, the poor omens. It's what I have to keep reminding myself every time I go into the sewers. Or sorry, the subterranean shunning grounds. They sure don't feel like poor little omens there. They feel like they are full of murder, which, to be fair, they are. Almost looks like a face. Okay. A lot just happened in one accidental swoosh. Alright, he's got the, like swoopy sleeves. Really don't want those getting too far, else it's gonna make the art piece a little oversized. Even for just a silly little sketch like this, we've got to try to keep it within reason. Actually, I might reasonably say, especially for a silly little sketch like this. There we go. That looks unpleasantly ominous. We'll go with that. That's why the shadows aren't lining up right. That should really go up to there. And there we go. Now this will look more correct. This... I don't know what's going on with this section here, honestly. That's okay. But this, at least, you'll say, okay, yeah, that part's in shadow. That's a little, like, wrinkle fold. Acts the way I'd expect. We can get a little more shadow on this. A little bit in here, a little bit in there. On the major shadows, but they're still worth including. Also, I've heard people talking about the wings on Miquella's back, and I feel like there's like 4 different things they might be thinking of when they say that, and I don't think any of them are wings. First off, if you're talking about this shape here, that's actually Haligtree in the background behind Moog. It's not connected. If you're talking about like the wispy hair strands, those are wispy hair strands. If you're talking about the wispy, like vaguely, I don't know, the translucenty bits that are gossamer. Yeah, the gossamer bits that have some hair in them. That, I think, if you look, that's over the head too, and off like down here as well. They're wings. They're just part of that whatchamadover that Miquella encased themselves in. Pardon. And if you think it's the thing directly facing us, that's actually an arm. Although at this angle, you'd be forgiven for thinking otherwise. But no, as far as I can tell, no wings. It'd be cool, though. And if Miquella's taken after the sister, it might also be extremely foreboding. It'd actually be very bad, potentially. Okay. I know we're not quite at 9 yet, but I'm going to take a quick little break, just to sort of regroup. Then we'll come back, we'll do this. We may do some more statue studies of this, well, studies of the statues. It wouldn't be more of them. Then we'll go from there on pretty much everything we have on Miquella. I'm excluding things for St. Trina, because even if they are the same person, the odds are their appearance does not match. And we know that they were in Miquella form at Castle Saul, which is the location we're going for, so we're gonna stick with that for now. So yeah, see y'all in just a couple. I'm going to stand up, stretch, get some water, use the restroom. I recommend y'all do the same. And then we'll be back at it. Howdys and salutations, y'all! Thanks for the wait. Hope that y'all were able to get a quick little stand up, walk around, drink some water. Maybe answer a few text messages, whatever you need to do. Because we're jumping into the fun part. That's right. Hair braids. But actually also the secondary fun part. Faces. Even just basics. Still the thing I need the most practice on. I mean, that's true of most people. But nonetheless. With this one we should be able to get a decent facsimile. First off, cheek lands about there. Eye actually lands more far forward. Not a bad eyeball for my first go. What we got? Also want to make sure we get the angle decent. That. They're at there for cheek and coming down for chin. Oh, I did all that on the Moog layer? Dagnabbit. There we go. We'll just get a little facsimile of it. We've got a little ear. And, I don't know. We don't have a lot of detail in the way of the face. So now it becomes really a question of hair. Which I'm actually going to do on its own layer. Okay. And I think the hair actually is probably going to need to be, yeah, over the arm to the extent that it matters, which isn't a ton. I'm going to do major forms first. We're going to go from there. So the main shape of this is it actually curves forward a fair ways. Doesn't taper quite that fast, but does ultimately taper. Alright, next up, we can track a little on the front of the head here. Kind of curves and goes up and forms the first part of the head itself. And this does kind of level off, although not quite as abruptly as there initially. But then it really... Oops, there we go. Kind of transitions into this braid over here. It's ultimately going to go down the back, but also kind of define the edge of the back. Its bump is on the other shoulder, roughly, a little bit below. And I note that its angle is actually generally not to the left, but to the right, despite everything. Got that. It comes down from a semi-central one here. I won't get any more detail on it right now beyond that. Then it's got a stray strand. Still comes down like this. I know there's more hair braids and such in there, whatever's happening here, but we're trying to just get the basics here. To that note, I'm going to now remove these distracting back and shoulder lines because I don't think we need them in here, and also the distracting other head-shaped lines. Beneficial though they were at the time, I think we're past them a little bit now. So now it's on to some of the more fun flair. I think we've got overall hair shape, not perfect, but decent. Although actually there is a notable bit that goes around the arm here. In fact, over the bracelet. And I'm not going to try to match hair exactly. Again, you all remember how long it took on Malenia. If anyone here does remember how long it took on Miquella, please inform me how you figured out time travel. Or don't, if that's going to put me on a watch list. Let's see. That's less hair and mostly ooze. To some extent in this picture, there's kind of no getting away from the ooze and the hair. They're all intertwined. And they're mucked. It's going to be terrible to clean that out. I wonder if Moog ever actually bothered to clean that out. I mean, supposedly he likes Miquella. At least enough to seek a royal wedding. Ominous as that is. But you would at least think that that might allow some assumption of Miquella's well-being. I'm skeptical that it does, truthfully. One can hope. Unless Miquella's pulling a Griffith, in which one can not really feel all that bad for him. Anyway, yeah, just loosey-goosing this part in. Loosey-goose is what it is. Even one moment to the next, those hair patterns wouldn't be exactly the same. I like that they kind of caught the stray strands. I don't think I'm going to be able to get a fine enough point. Ooh, never mind. Hello, pencil. I forgot about you being what you are. That said, I'm not going for that level of detail on everything. Probably ought to do a little better on this, though. So many details in this that I didn't even notice the first, like, even half hour I was looking at it before I really started trying to draw it. And I was like, oh, holy cow. Stuff like the, I don't know, mucous membrane or whatever you want to call it. Okay. Anyway, as far as hair goes, let's go for not exact, but reasonable facsimile. Really the braid happening here that I accidentally erased. And based on these other ones, it ought to be potentially a triple braid of sorts. Which means that I've got no shot in the dark at representing it well. But we'll use our quick little facsimile here to do something still decent. Especially given that that one's going to be not terribly visible. These ones are going to be the real challenge. This one defines a lot of the top and middle of the hair, to be fair. I love this kind of like loose braid they've got going that tightens up as it goes down. It's a really cool look, and I'm sure agonizing to maintain in real life, much as I'd love to try. I also don't have, you know, several yards of hair, tragically. Perhaps one of these days. I've got to think about where that silhouette ends up going ultimately. Okay. This kind of smooths out for a while before landing on big silhouette, and even then we're biased towards one side of it for the most part. Not above getting sloppy with that. Yeah, we're just trying to do rough facsimile here. I will say, if Miquella is missing the crown of unalloyed gold, that's got some interesting implications about a lot of things, including how much Moog may know about what was going on at the Halig tree. Because that crown ain't just for show. It also was supposed to prevent the external entity influence, which Moog would not want to happen, to be fair. So Moog would have to know that's what it did, or have just gotten lucky. Or perhaps Moog did forget to remove it, and that's why that plan isn't working. Perhaps the plan is working. We'll all see with the DLC. Moog's been up to something these last couple of years. Oh boy. Thinking triple spirals always hurt my brain. There. Next one lands. They're like arcs of 2 over. Ay, ay, ay. As you'd expect, this is kind of getting pulled towards the braids. Except for some of the more loosey-goosey ones, of course, that are making their way over. And then Miquella himself got shadow, face in shadow. Big time. As you'd expect. And the hair they're also having some shadow, but mostly from as they lit from above and slightly in front, i.e. the direction of Moog's face. Just a little surprising, actually. Oh, I forgot a braid. I'll have to fix that. Okay. That's why it's worth it to go through and do some shading. Maybe you'll notice when you totally forgot an entire braid. And like all of that. Not that important. Most of these are kind of in the gossamer zone, but they're starting to fall into the shadowy zone too. Being honest. This one's in the shadowy zone. We kind of knew that already, I think. This strand also. And then that second braid, I guess, should technically be interrupting here. And it's also a triple, so it wouldn't actually follow this exact pattern quite so well. Or would it get quite that bulky in the middle? But it's decent. And that, as a whole, I think we've got the important details. Checking, I don't see a crown. Do see the gossamer veil, of course. That would not be relevant for the illustration we're doing, so I'm not really prioritizing it. But it's technically in here. Its own little ominous strands. We can just loosely get in here, and we'll leave it on the hair layer even though we know it's not hair. And there we go. Miquella! In all their being kidnapped glory. Cool. Yeah. Anyway, or Miquella. Maybe. Let's see. Preparation, I'm going to call this. Preparation. Preparation. No telling what layer that's on. Yeah, I figured it would. There we go. Let's pull up a different picture. Got overall earlier Miquella. A little better detail on the outfit. A little less wild on the hair. Detailing on that belt, is it just a kind of simple? Yeah, okay. I think it is. I mean, the loops with the dots in the middle, which if we really, really wanted to reach, we could argue resembles something from the screenshot, but it doesn't resemble it that well, so I'm not going to make that claim. Which would be the wooden, presumably gravestones. I don't know how you would 3D model something to look this good. Yeah, line-wise, that probably needs to come out a little more. That's fine. But this is not how you draw anything you want to be proportional, by the way. Doing it section by section like this does not get you good proportions. At least use basic lines to figure out where stuff should line up. However, not really prioritizing proportion on this. We're just doing some quick studies. Because truthfully, I'm feeling the tiredness a little more than I expected to already. And so I'm just going to try to do some stuff and hope that this is something we can do quickly and gain some useful knowledge. And not something that by doing it quickly, it's just worthless and bad. Because that's no fun. Let's see. These two, I mean, look, happiest family in Elden Ring, probably not in the running. However, they do seem to be good to each other. That is sort of just like straight up and then over. I assume, or at least I'm operating on the assumption that this is the two of them mourning Godwin. It could be mourning a number of other things. They had it comparatively rough. I mean, don't get me wrong. I suppose that depends a lot on who you're comparing them to. But as far as the Empyreans go, I mean, Moog and Morgott objectively worse, but these guys, rough time. I guess that does raise one question in terms of timing. So at some point, Elden Lord was Godfrey. Godfrey and Marika. And then was that simultaneous with or prior to Radon and Renala getting married? Because on the one hand, if it's simultaneous, that doesn't make any sense, given details about Marika and Radigan. And also details about who the Elden Lord was and marriage and all that. And Radigan being the Elden Lord at that point, so almost certainly not. However, they also mentioned that Godfrey was exiled when the last of their enemies fell, mainly because he wasn't needed anymore. So I guess at that time the Academy wasn't an enemy, and then later it became one? Which is an interesting potential. And then the Academy connection broke off. And I feel very bad for Renala. She also probably should have retired. He did not, however. That made things slightly complicated for everyone. She turned the debate parlor into a doghouse. Probably not cool. In any case, after that, it was just solo Radigan America, which, yeah. And you get these two. I will say, at least Godfrey seemed to care for Margit, or Morgott. One of the more loving relationships we actually see in the game. And obviously these two care about each other an awful lot. And I don't remember... Okay, Ronnie's obviously daughter of Renala. Melina still isn't technically confirmed one way or the other. I got no clue where she would fit in. Although if it involves a curse, it was probably with this latter one, because there seemed to be a special theme of getting cursed when you were the kid of Radigan America. These two had a rough time of it. Radon was, I think, son of Renala. Certainly had the magic to be trained by her, it would seem. Figuring out their family lineage is so complicated. There we go. Let's Slightly less bold on that. Well, in any case, I don't know that there's a lot of insight to be had from this angle other than the tunic's appearance itself, which would appear to be fairly classic. Slightly baggy sleeved, as was the style of the time. And like kind of a side belty shirt bit as one possible definition. Could also just be a different fold of it and it was wrapped around and tucked under. Also believable, in which case that would probably end up looking... Well, it'd be tucked over the belt though. I think something like that. We can always look at the next image to try to get some more details. This doesn't help. Baggy sleeves. Baggy tunic, we've got the belt. And then what appears to be just this front piece. To its credit, does seem to be more of a rectangle than an angle. And then the secondary part. Down to the feet. Out of curiosity. Whoops. Does that match? Not a lot of detail to go on, but I am noticing an arm bracelet here. Which, was that on the statue? I don't think that was on the statue. And it would have been this arm. Interesting. At some point, Miquella brought up an arm, or got himself an arm bracelet. Got himself an arm bracelet. Not Mog. Still possible that this DLC teaser isn't even Miquella, and it's like Stinking Fia or something. Who, if I haven't made this clear, I am not fond of. And not just for the whole Baldekin's blessing thing or whatever. The HPP penalty didn't seem to be that much, honestly. Like, I've had fights where it would have mattered, but, like, not a lot of them. But it's more that I didn't hate D. D was a bit overzealous, but I feel like D was generally cool. More importantly, it's that I really did like Rogier. Or Rogier. Or however the heck you say his name. I liked Rod. Raj. Whatever. Mage, eventually mage in wheelchair. Very cool. I guess it wasn't wheeled. In chair. Part 3, and I reckon I can recompress some of this, get my workspace back in a more familiar layout. We can zoom, and I really care about mostly the face here. Although the vein on the arm / possibly fine? Unclear. Interesting, but unclear. Sorry. The other thing I hadn't mentioned up to this point, and it's probably why yesterday and today's streams have been less chatty. Ow. I managed to get a couple canker sores. Lasted things. If I sleep on my side, it seems to make them worse. I don't know why. Or rather, it makes them happen. I don't know why. Beyond that, but... In any case, mouth angry. And I just took a sip of water and regretted it. So give me a second. Ow. You ever notice that if you press on those for a couple seconds, the pain becomes so bad that your brain just starts to edit it out? I should really just have used some Oragel. Ow. Okay, we're gonna try to draw a face, and then I'm probably gonna have to rap, because yowza. Yowza, 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 yowza. Mistakes were made. A fairly flat face on this statue. Certainly compared to the actual Miquella that we see. Oh. I have regrets. I have so many regrets, and they all involve poking a canker sore. Again, I'm doing detail way too soon, but it is interesting that we've got the childlike nose. And it's interesting that we kind of have two statues in terms of timing, because we have that other one where there's Godwin being a good older brother, and Miquella and Malenia being similar in height and size at that point. And then there's this one, where we've got Miquella basically the same size. And Malenia obviously much, much taller. I'm just going kind of loosey-goosey on the face here. Again, because Izzy's saying ouch and being ouch. And just trying to get this done so that I can pause and deal with ouch. Yeah, funny, it gets a little pixely when we're looking at it this close. Not pixely, but texture stretchy. But even so, it's still pretty happy with that they put this level of detail in it for stuff that they didn't have to. The fact that this reference is neat. It's also one of the charming things about FromSoft games, specifically for me and like history nerds, is that dealing with them feels a little bit like dealing with actual history. It's like, yeah, we've got this figure who's been talked about, but we only have partial representations of them. Like hints and odds and ends that we have to piece together. It's why all the lore dives are so exciting for so many people, is that it's a lot like trying to deal with actual history. And that's especially amplified by how fragmentary it all is. Let's see, now let's hold on. Getting these lines right is going to be the difference between this looking like a face and this looking like not at all a face. Or at least not at all like the face we're looking at. Once again, I've got this too tapered. That's considerably better, actually. I think I'm going to take that and be happy with it. The fact that it's centered around the mouth makes it just look like Miquella's kind of a messy eater. That's not ideal. And of course, there's this symbol. Lovely woven. Which actually probably matches that lovely fence that we saw the other day. Like, not centered, but I bet a chunk of it is somehow similar. Texture gets up on the hair a little bit. Even, like, continues around it. But at this point, they did have that headband. And they didn't have the bracelet. Although technically the hair should be the lightest part, and the whole face should have just a very faint layer of shadow. It'll do. That's a simple rounded face with a very, very high nose, actually. An interesting detail that I'll want to remember. And I wouldn't have noticed even from our other references. Wouldn't have noticed from our other references, truthfully. So yeah, I think it's been worth doing these. I do again apologize that we haven't been jumping into actual illustration yet. But I know composition is something that is going to take me more work, and I knew that the face is going to be something that takes more work, even beyond these. I want to do some prep, since I'm already a little off-kilter these days. And hopefully, I can't promise it, but hopefully Thursday we'll have a stronger showing, a little more prep. I still think this has been good practice, but we will, once we get into it, it'll be fun. So on that note, I'm going to wrap it up for now. Thank you all for dropping by. I know this is a little early, but I gotta not talk too much or my mouth is going to get angry at me. So I will leave you with it, and hope that y'all have a good one. See you on Thursday.